I feel like I just love this topic because this is really all about using food as medicine. I
Me
know,
too.
Dr. Chiu, you're excited about it.
Absolutely.
So we know that, just as a definition, superfoods are essentially our foods that offer an exceptional health benefits. This goes beyond what you typically expect to see just based on nutritional profile, right? So when you go to a dietitian, they look at foods as number of calories of fat, number of calories of protein, number of calories of carbohydrates or whatever it is, right? And what vitamins and nutrients they have. But here, we have a more holistic, with a W, like holistic approach to looking at what are certain foods containing that would be beneficial in prevention of diseases. They're supposed to support certain physiological function, and they're associated with multiple benefits, such as reduced risk of metabolic and cardiovascular diseases, balance or modulate immune function, prevention of cancer, improve lipid profiles, lower cholesterol, healthier aging. We're going to talk about a few of those interesting mechanisms today. Reduce the risk of bone loss and improve cognitive function. We're also going to talk about some of those pathways of cognitive condition, neurological degenerative conditions. So superfoods, they contain bioactive substances, right? So we're talking about fiber, talking about antioxidants, beyond vitamins and minerals. We're talking about polyphenols. This is when we eat some of those foods we're going to talk about today, or spices, they contain what we call full spectrum. And this is very different than a pharmaceutical drug that has one or two active ingredients and has a very specific molecular function, right? Here with superfoods, we're talking about full spectrum. So you can get over a dozen different types of bioactive substances and polyphenols, which essentially reduce pro-inflammatory cytokines, which reduce chronic inflammation. So why is that important? Chronic inflammation, we know that it is one of the major contributors to so many chronic conditions. For example, when you have chronic inflammation, it's not just the inflammatory cytokines, but they also, all these inflammatory pathways also increases their amount of reactive oxygen species. In other words, we can call them free radicals, right? So if you remember free radicals, they float around, they're missing an electron, and they borrow electrons, leading to instability in the cells, in the molecules around them. So here's an interesting picture from a medical journal published in Frontier in Pharmacology. And what you see here is how chronic inflammation can contribute to so many conditions. Starting from the top, you can see inflammatory bowel disease, psoriasis, neurological disorders, Alzheimer's, Parkinson, dementia, metabolic. Diabetes, for example, is an systemic inflammatory condition. Cancer is also, there's a very strong link, association in multiple studies between inflammation and then the imbalance in the immune system that disrupt the natural killer cells from killing those cancer cells, right? Also, we're talking about, of course, bone and muscle and joint disorders. And then we're talking about cardiovascular diseases, which makes sense, right? Cardiovascular disease, it's easy to think about it. There's inflammation, there's higher risk of atherosclerosis. Interesting, I wrote an article just recently about cholesterol. And there are so many studies that are showing that high cholesterol could increase the risk of cardiovascular disease and atherosclerosis. But in order to do that, inflammation must play a role in that process. But if you want to read more about this, I put the citation on the right side. It's called Phytochemicals in Treatment of Inflammation-Associated Diseases, the journey from preclinical trials to clinical practice. Again, very interesting study. We know that superfoods are rich in antioxidants, which protects our cells from oxidative stress, from the damage of reactive oxygen species. And just by doing that, we can prevent or at least inhibit the damage to our cells. It also contains minerals, vitamins, which are very important, right? For example, calcium is really important, potassium, Selenium is a powerful antioxidant. We have multiple vitamins that are essential, like B vitamins, important for mitochondria, for energy production in the cells. But beyond that, so many nutrients are important. But beyond that, we have also fiber, which helps reduce cholesterol, prevent heart conditions. Flavonoid, interestingly, they used to be called vitamin P, and they have anti-inflammatory, anti-carcinogenic properties. And then, of course, some of those also superfoods contain healthy fats, monosaturated and polysaturated fats, which are also helpful. So very excited about today. I wanted to give you that little intro so you understand how it works.
And this is an awesome topic just because this is so easy to incorporate into your daily routine. And this is easy to educate your patients on how to incorporate. And as Dr. Cohen was mentioning, the first superfood that we're going to talk about are berries. The berries that I'm talking about, these are your strawberries, your blueberries, your raspberries, blackberries, and these are all potent options. And it's because they are all rich in polyphenols, as Dr. Cohen was mentioning, also antioxidants. They provide a high amount of water, fiber, and then other micronutrients. And they help with managing inflammation. They also do a lot of other potent things in helping to reduce risk of major issues or major health issues down the road. So speaking of that, I want to discuss a really, really cool study. And this was done on the American adult population. And they analyzed data from over 37,000 individuals. And what they did was they took a look at their berry or flavonoid consumption on an intake. And they did this and analyzed their 24-hour food recalls. They tracked all their health outcomes over an 8-year period. And then they did a follow-up period with that. And so they were able to draw conclusions from observing these 37,000 individuals. Some of the results were astounding. Some of the results included having a dose response relationship between the intake of total flavonoids, anthocyanidins, and flavones. These are all within the berries. These all shown that the higher amounts that you took, the lower risk that you had in all causes of mortality risk. Another result that they showed was that the higher intake of these berries and these flavonoids, and these were all associated with a lower overall mortality risk in these adult Americans. And then a higher intake of these flavonoids, anthocyanidins, and these are all found in the deep blues and the purples of the berries. So these are your blueberries and your blackberries. These were a subclass. These were also linked to a lower reduction in mortality risk. And then they also showed an inverse relationship between the consumption of these berries and cardiovascular health. What this means is that a higher intake of flavonoids or these berries showed an improved health of cardiovascular and respiratory health. And then a decreased intake of these showed at a higher risk of cardiovascular conditions and respiratory conditions. So let's show you a picture on how, when you eat these berries, what happens in your system. So we can see on the left-hand side that all of these berries are rich in polyphenols. And it's that polyphenol that goes into your gut. And we talk about the gut microbiota often because it's extremely important in our overall health. And this is no exception with polyphenols. What polyphenols does is it helps to modulate your gut microbiota. And these produce what's called polyphenolic metabolites, and it's these metabolites that shows to be anti-cancerous, anti-diabetic, anti-inflammatory. It helps with your brain and it helps with your cardiovascular health. This is why it's so important to incorporate some sort of berries into your daily or your weekly routine telling your patients about incorporating berries and these polyphenols into their daily routine. And it's extremely easy to do. You can put it into a smoothie, you can eat them solo, you can put them with proteins or healthy fats, you can add them into drinks, you can add them to salads. And we wanted to show you a really easy way to incorporate berries into your routine, or you can give this to your patients as well. It's called a antioxidant tropical smoothie recipe. So this is a really easy smoothie that you can do for yourself, or you can have your patients do. Most of the time in my metabolic program, most of the patients always ask for a smoothie recipe. So I wanted to share this with you. We wanted to share this recipe with you because your patients will most likely ask for this as well. But it's 1.5 cups of blueberries, almond butter, some pineapple, some superfood by Amazing Grass, or there's a raw organic perfect food by Garden of Life. You can do unsweetened flax or almond milk. You could add a protein powder, which is optional, and then a handful of ice cubes, and then you just puree all of these ingredients. You can even double or triple the amount of this and put it into a large mixer or blender, and then you can save some for later. So I will typically put it into a large blender. So I'll have 2 to 3 servings that I'll save for the next couple of days as well. And the almond butter in there helps to add fiber and some protein to reduce the absorption of the sugar from the berries. But this is a pretty awesome smoothie. I do a smoothie probably every other day, and it just kind of helps to start my day. And this is what I hear from my patients as well.
Perfect. And this is, by the way, I love doing this shake. So in the summer, I'll start my morning with something like this. In the winter, I'll typically do it later afternoon between lunch and dinner. That's the time where everybody's reaching out for coffee, right? Between that lunchtime, between noon, 2 o'clock, when your energy feels like, oh, I need a little boost, right? But if you feel like you need a little snack and some additional little boost, this could be a great one. I love that recommendation. And of course, I like to put some protein in mine. So I have a vegan protein that I like to use, like hemp something, 17 grams of protein. It works great. It's vanilla flavor. So love the recipe. And hopefully you can find this beneficial for you or your patients.